Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Heather from ShareBird, a site where top product marketing leaders share their expertise. I'm really excited for today's event. We have a fantastic panel on developing your product marketing career. I want to share a couple of announcements before the panel. First, the format for the event. The first half of the event will be questions from the moderator, and the second half will be live questions. There's a Q&A feature on Zoom, so go there to add your questions for the panel and share your questions right away so that others can upvote them. Second, our next Q&A panel event is February 19th on building better messaging. The panel for that event are the VP of Product Marketing at Box, the VP of Product Marketing at Zora, and the VP of Product Marketing for Jira at Atlassian. You can register for that event at the link in the chat, which I'll drop here in just a moment. And with that said, I'd love to hand it over to Jack and the panel to introduce themselves and get started.
Thank you, Heather. I'm always impressed by how ShareBird's able to just pull together these hard hitters from these reputable companies on an ongoing basis. But enough about what's coming up, but let's talk about today's panel, which is all about growing your PMM career, brought to you by the good folks over at ShareBird. And to follow the flow of the event description, we're going to split the questions into four categories. Everyone who's been on one of these knows that first half of the hour is all on questions that the audience has already submitted. But to Heather's point, if you have things that come up throughout this conversation and panel in the first half, submit it, and then we're going to organize it to talk about it in the second half. So you get to grill your panelists in real time in some ways. We're going to split the questions into four parts. Number one, how to best grow your PMM career. I think everyone's interested in that. The second one is how you can shape your resume and profile for a fruitful PMM career, because most of us, as we know, do not start in product marketing. And thirdly, what helps to accelerate a career growth in product marketing? I think there are some interesting moments or compelling events, PMM speak, if you will, that have helped us along the way. So I'm curious to hear about that from the panel. And then lastly, live questions from the audience. So again, we welcome you to submit things in real time. Without further ado, let's say hi to our panelists. We've got Amy Lowe, VP of Product and Brand Marketing at Motive. We've got Kelly Kipkalov, I hope I pronounced that properly, VP of Product Marketing at Carta. And we've got Raman Sharma, VP of Product Marketing at Confluent. I know you all have very different and interesting paths of getting to where you're at today, obviously, but the audience doesn't. So let's start with a softball for each of you. How did you get into PMM? And to kick us off, Kelly, why don't we start with you?
Awesome. All right. It's nice to be on the show, Jack. Appreciate it. Kelly Kipkalov rhymes with olive. That's the way I always tell people to remember my last name. So I actually started my career out of grad school in CPG, consumer packaged goods. And I think there's probably a myth, at least for me, it's a myth in Silicon Valley that tech companies started the function of product marketing. But if you think about it, brand marketers and companies like Procter and Gamble and Unilever and those packaged goods companies, P was part of the brand manager's role. P in product was part of the brand manager's role. And so I started my career in packaged goods. And I think one of the things it really helped me learn was customer insight. Writing their CPG companies are great at really getting into the minds of their customers and really understanding what motivates them. And that's really, to me, the best characteristic of a product marketer is somebody who's very customer backed and insight driven. And so that's how I started my career, was in packaged goods as a brand manager, actually.
That's really cool. I can actually relate. I wasn't directly in CPG, but in that realm before breaking into tech. So thank you for that,
Yeah.
Kelly.
Yeah.
Amy, why don't you continue?
Hi everyone, I'm Amy Lowe, and I got into product marketing actually. Can you guys all hear me? It kind of froze for a second.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I actually, started my career on the agency side, really doing more on the analytics. And so I've always been a very data-driven marketer. And when I moved into tech, my first kind of tech role was at Square. And I started on the performance marketing team, really optimizing campaigns. And through that process, started getting close to PMMs and partnering directly with PMMs on how to launch their campaigns. And then it wasn't until I took kind of my next leadership role at Square, I led marketing strategy and ops, that really required me to partner deeply across the company with multiple PMMs, GMs, and understanding kind of the customers they were going after, where they overlapped, how did we prioritize one product over the other. And eventually that kind of made me really interested in getting closer to product, and it made a natural transition into a PMM leadership role at Square. So that's how I got into PMM. I've loved it ever since, and I can talk a little bit more about what's the best way to kind of navigate to a PMM role later.
We're going to definitely get to that, Amy. Thank you. All right, Ramon, how about you?
Hi everyone, my name is Raman. Thanks, Jack, for having me. So I started my career as a software engineer, moved into product management, did that for a number of years at Microsoft. And then, when you work in a large company, especially in a PM role, you feel like you get a lot of great experience thinking about product roadmaps, working with the engineering team, delivering on the product roadmap, and so on. But especially in a large organization, you don't quite get all the insight into how exactly do we take these products to market, how we think about pricing, packaging, positioning, messaging, how does the sales machinery work, and all that. So I wanted to experience those things. So I very intentionally transitioned into a product marketing role within Microsoft and fell in love with it, and have been doing that. This is for the third company in which I'm doing now, a fourth company actually in which I'm doing product marketing now, and absolutely love it. Would love to share any insights, any learnings from my path. I'm very much a techie at heart, even though I'm in marketing, but would love to talk about that.
I love that. What a diversified
So
panel,
such a diverse
right?
set of backgrounds. That's great. Well
Great
done.
diversity. Yeah. Yeah. I can't take credit. This is all sharebird's, but you're right. Someone from brand management background in CPG, someone who started out in performance marketing, software engineer. This is amazing, right? Technical PMM, the storytelling, the breadth is good. Okay. So let's get into it then. Let's start with a question around growth. So Amy, I'm going to bring you back on. Very broad question, somewhat, but I'm hoping we can hear some concrete and pointed examples. But what differentiates a great PMM from let's say, an average or good PMM?
Yeah, so I think organizations today expect expectation of a PMM is, they're responsible for bringing a product or go-to-market process, enabling sales, customer-facing teams, creating launch assets, and making sure all of your messaging is consistent and ladders up to the clear positioning they create. And so to me, that's like table stakes PMM and what people think PMMs do when you think of a PMM. But I've been a part of really great PMM teams as well, which I think what really differentiates there is like creating a really tight feedback loop back to product. Once you bring something to market, what are the insights that you're getting? What is the feedback from the customers? And then actually then translating that back into product and really helping them to understand the customer pain points better. And then I think at that point, you're invited to, take a look at the roadmap together. You can prioritize what features are important and what wouldn't be. And, oftentimes I talk about like PMM being really that strategic muscle of the product development process. And some PMMs will tell me like, well, that's just not how we operate today. Like I'm not a part of those meetings or those cadences. And to me, I'm like, well, maybe you don't have a seat at the table because you haven't brought enough value to the table yet. And to me, I think like once you start to get that rhythm and you consistently bring that feedback back, you're going to be invited to have a seat at the table. So that's really how I've been trying to think about how to shape my product marketing teams to really bring that strategic value. I think the last thing I'll say about what a great PMM team does is having a lot of ownership and accountability for the product metrics and outcomes. And so this could include product growth or feature adoption or revenue impact, and holding those PMMs really accountable to those outcomes. Because I think great PMMs, they'll set these ambitious targets alongside the product team, and they're relentless about hitting them. And if you're not hitting them, then you actually just kind of bring back the insights, like, is it a process issue? Is it a product feature gap? And then really think about how to ultimately hit those numbers. So I think that's the other part of what makes a really great PMM, in my opinion.
Love it. Yeah. You got to set some sort of number-driven goal, even though a lot of times PMMs do not have direct control. But setting that goal actually forces you to establish strong cross-functional partnerships, right? And I love what you said about it's not just heads down production, right? You gotta make those connections, not just with product, but all the market-facing teams, even ops, and then driving the internal adoption of what you've produced, right? So that production, connection, adoption, like is so important for the overall health and trajectory of any PMM. So thank you
Jack,
for that.
Jack, can I riff off of something Amy just said, if you don't
Of
mind?
course, absolutely.
Because I know that there's a lot of people in organizations where maybe there's a tiny product marketing team or no product marketing team, and you're the first product marketer. There's just so many situations where product managers don't know how to leverage PMM. And so and the thing that Amy just said about not getting a seat at the table is very, very real. And it's one of the things that I definitely look at to see how strong is the relationship between product and PMM. And that's a sign to me of an exceptional PMM when they can almost complete each other's sentences, and the product as deeply. We're not going to be a replacement for PM, but you can speak on behalf of PM, whether that's to sales or solutions engineering. I look very closely at the strength of that relationship to see how well performing the PMM team is doing.
Yeah, it's a great question to ask for candidates to ask during interviews, by the way. So, for those in the audience, it's something you should not shy away from. It's a very good indicator of whether or not you're set up for success, or is it one of the first things you're going to tackle.
Yeah.
Rahman, let's bring you up. What's the best piece of advice you've received to grow your career? And it has to be PMM specific. It can't be from your software engineering days.
Oh, come on, Matt. No, actually, you know what? My first manager, when I first took my first product marketing job, he told me something that has stayed with me ever since in all my jobs, even when I change jobs, whenever I take up a new role, especially in product marketing. Like, know your customer and know your space. I think those are two very important things. Sometimes as a product marketer, because product marketing by definition is a very cross-functional role, it is very easy to get too busy in all the cross-functional collaboration, stakeholder management, and all of those things, and not spending enough time in really understanding who your customer is, what problems are they looking to solve, what does your problem space look like. If you're building a CRM, what is happening in the CRM space? If you're building cloud infrastructure, what are the trends in that space? If you're not keeping track, if you're not keeping yourself educated and updated on all those things, you'll not be able to bring as much value to the table, to the point that Amy made earlier. Number one, like having this customer empathy and intimacy about like their problems is not only important for you to do amazing storytelling, which is kind of your value. You're not a you don't build the product and you don't sell it. You don't have a quota and you don't write specs. So what's your superpower? Your superpower is storytelling, right? So you can't do effective storytelling if you do not have an understanding of customers and the space. And secondly, you can't bring value back to the table whenever you're in conversations with the product team, for example, or with the sales team, about what's happening in the space. This is what I'm hearing. Why are you talking about it this way when you should be talking about it that way, and so on. So I think that is one piece of advice that I always go back to. Like it's a grounding principle for me. I always tell my teams to figure out a way of like spending time with customers one way or the other.
Yeah, it's so true, and it's something that everyone, when you say it, knowing your customer, everyone's like, oh, duh, of course, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
it takes so much discipline to do because like you start a job where you're doing your job, you're trying to do a good job, and you just get stuck in the weeds and you're trying to do planning and forecasting and QBRs or whatever it is, right? But I think the ones who truly know their customers do it in a very disciplined way. And they'll carve out time to be like, hey, I am going to set my own personal quota and talk to at least 1 to 2 customers a week. And whether I do it directly or through the CSM or through this account manager or through a salesperson, it doesn't matter. They make it happen. And it
Through
really
call
saves you.
recordings, there are all these ways available these days.
That's right. That's right. And when you know your customer and the feedback comes straight from enough customers, guess what? What you say as a PMM also becomes kind of irrefutable internally, right? Because it's not
100%.
you, it's not opinions anymore.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Kelly, Amy, anything to add to that one?
I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think talking to your customers and having that customer empathy is like the number one thing that really grounds everyone. And I actually spent a week at a trade show this week and just talking to customers, and I just think it's the most valuable thing a PMM can do because you can take that customer feedback and really feed that back to the rest of the team.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we're kind of halfway through this portion. Let's get into the shaping your profile and for PMM career questions. Ramon, I'm gonna tap you, bring you back in here. Um, are there other roles that's easily transferable to PMM for folks who want to break into this job? And obviously, I'm calling on you for a reason. You didn't start out in PMM. I'm sure others have stories to add, but yeah, kick us off here from a technical standpoint.
Yeah. So I think my response would probably be biased by the fact that, I have a tendency to work on very technical products for very technical audiences. So I have seen that people who have been in customer facing roles, people who really understand the audience, they tend to make good product marketers, even if they do not have like a traditional marketing training. They can be coached on storytelling, they can be coached on how to think about like, building content and working with the rest of the GTM machinery. But I've found that a lot of people do not take the time to build that customer empathy and going deep on the product and the domain area. So I feel like people who have done that already actually have lowered the barrier, and being in a customer facing role, I think they tend to make for good product marketers. The other, I would say, my own example, I come from a PM product management background, and I do feel like coming from a product background gives me kind of a good perspective, both in terms of what does the product need to do and what does the story and the messaging of the product need to say to really resonate with the customer or the target audience. But also, um, I think as a product person, if you move into product marketing, you'll probably build a deeper understanding and appreciation of like all the things that go into making a product or a go-to-market successful beyond just the technical features of the product, like pricing and packaging and storytelling, all the full offer, and how does the rest of the GTM machinery of the company work? What are the different incentives? So I think product management, I don't see that very often, but I do feel like product managers with slightly more expansive thinking of business make for good product marketers. The third I would say is like from within the marketing world, people who have done good content marketing,
Mm-hmm.
they make for good product marketers, especially if they have spent the time to build like a understand. If you think of yourself purely as a content operations person, probably not. Product marketing is not for you. But if you have spent the time to understand the domain, done some good writing, understand the customer pain points, and so on. So people from customer marketing and comms, they actually make for good product marketers, because comms
Mm-hmm.
also is one of those roles in which you are supposed to think of the company story overall, not just this product, that product, but what is my story as a company? Why do I exist? What's my kind of unique differentiation and so on, which is kind of a core element of product marketing as well. So those three, I would say, in my opinion,
Yeah.
are good product marketers.
That's a good amount of different roles that can feed into PMM, which I think is kind of telling us something about product marketers, right? That versatility and being able to balance balance your left to right brain and being qualitative yet quantitative. Um, I think packaging really stands out to me because at a simplest level, packaging is like how do you bundle and categorize things into easier to grasp concepts. But also when it comes to product launches, how do you package up technical features and small things into bigger moments that are manufactured? That I've worked with several clients now in the last year and a half or so who are at the enterprise stage or level, and they still haven't fully figured out a good repeatable release process. So it's very interesting that that type of ebb and flow and being able to just again connect and package things.
Jack, I really like Amy's background, frankly, like where she started from in DG, I think is great because you have to, I think good DG folks really understand the value props that are resonating in the market about the product and specific. And so I think that is a really strong foundation. And I've pulled people in from DG in my past.
Yeah, and I would say that's actually a big part of, how I got into product marketing was a lot of testing and really testing different value props in market and seeing what was working within all of our ads, search ads, and things like that, and then bringing those insights back to the product team. One thing that was really great about Square is, we did have these monthly and quarterly business reviews, but it was an invitation for the rest of the organization to come and learn about, what's going well with the product and what isn't. And, because I wanted to get closer to the product world, I had this natural curiosity of like, okay, what's actually, working within a product versus not, and actually going and contributing to the content and actually sharing what's really resonating. I feel like that gave me a lot of visibility within the product org as a subject matter expert on like what's actually resonating in market, which made that transition into PMM a lot easier.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So we've heard PM, we've heard customer marketing, we've heard content marketing, as well as demand gen, right? So a lot of different areas that can help get somebody into product marketing for the first time if that's not your background.
I would say customer success, solution engineering, those are also pretty good.
We're running the gamut here, right? So it seems like just even based on that, I think we can all agree that PMM can be set up to be or scoped to be a quite a generalist role.
Yeah.
But I'm sure we all have specialists that have worked for us with us in the past or even now, right? Depending on the stage and the size of the company. So, what stands out to you guys the most, right? You're in these like executive leadership roles now. When you're trying to fill out a very important role in your team, do you look for specialists or generalists? Like, how do you balance the two?
I can take this one. I gave this a little bit of thought. So I basically have two flavors of product marketers on my team, and I don't know if this is going to resonate with Amy and Ramon, but I have what I call outbound product marketers and inbound product marketers. And so when I'm hiring on the inbound side, I'm sort of looking horizontally for folks that have had really solid product marketing experience, B2B. I don't, maybe they have to have come from fintech because I'm in a fintech, maybe not, but I'm mostly looking for really strong PMM craft. The inbound roles are the folks that are working with product messaging, positioning, pricing, patching, all of those types of things that the outbound role is very different. They're much more aligned to sort of our audiences and our sales motion and our marketing motion. And so I actually do look for vertical expertise in my outbound product marketers because I really need them to know our audience. Carta it's in a very niche space within private capital. And so if I've got somebody who's going to be working with our VC sales team, it's really helpful for me to have somebody that can speak that same language. And so I do look for people with that kind of technical expertise, and maybe PMM is slightly less important than really being able to understand deeply the customer set. So that's when I'll go for technical expertise.
Yeah, Kelly, thank you. That makes a lot of sense given what Carta does as a business and your business model.
Yeah.
I know that Meta structured their PMM department and functioned this way for a really long time, up until probably a year and a half ago. So you're clearly doing something right and very, very logical. So thank you for sharing that.
That's actually the same transition that Square went through as well, where they were aligning more of the outbound PMMs to the sales motion across different verticals. But then you also had just like product PMMs, what we were calling them product PMMs, that were aligned more to product and developing that messaging and positioning.
That's awesome. Okay, we are going a little bit over, but I'm loving this conversation, so we can just maybe eat into a bit of the live Q&A if Heather lets us. Either way, let's get into the how do you accelerate your PMM career portion. Kelly, I'm going to bring you back. Besides rapid company and business growth phases, right? Which of course, like we all have hopefully been fortunate enough to ride a wave at points in our careers. Are there other moments though where you felt like it was more within your control that actually did help to accelerate your career growth?
I guess I've thought so. I have two things on this. One, as I've sort of strung my career together, I've moved from one role to the next, trying to fill a hole in my resume to really build out like a very holistic, a holistic resume. So I remember when I moved from packaged goods into tech, I really wanted to own a P&L. And so I got myself into a role where I could own a P&L and start to round things out because I didn't have that in my toolkit. So one is like looking for those experiences that fill gaps in the narrative of your career. And then the other one is just running to really hard problems and solving really hard problems because nothing's going to accelerate your career more than having a meaningful impact and doing hard and very visible work. And so that's like I would say the closer you fly to the sun, the faster you're going to get there.
You got to be able to have the ability to actually fly though.
And hopefully not get burned in the
Yeah,
process,
yeah.
right?
So I'm hearing you say demonstrate ownership, right? I think that that's the key word because you never want to wait for someone to delegate projects and tasks to you. You just want to all the cliche words like self-starter, blah, blah, blah. But regardless of whether you're a seed stage startup or late stage, like ownership is
Yeah.
very, very important.
Yeah, the other thing I talk a lot to my team about, and it in bigger companies, and Ramon, I'm curious, like your experiences with Microsoft, but my experience in bigger companies, it's harder to carve out space that you can really plant a flag in and say, I did that. Because in bigger companies, you just have larger teams, and at some point you find out that there's a team over there you never heard of that was trying to solve the same problem that you're doing. And so one of the things I tell my teams in startups is go for the white space. Make sure there's nobody else trying to solve that same problem. Play in the white spaces and solve those problems.
No, I think I completely agree with that. I also feel, I think one of the common sayings in the product marketing world is learn to say no. Be strategic about saying no because there will always be more demands on your time than you can manage. Sales wants you to do something, product wants you to do something, demand gen wants you to do something, the CEO wants you to do something else. So I think it is also for career growth, it is also important to so that you're strategic about saying yes as well. When there have been times in my career when there were opportunities presented which would not neatly fall into the product marketing bucket because product marketing is defined differently in different companies, right? And I think saying yes to some of those opportunities really accelerated my career and my growth, even within the product marketing discipline. Because number one, it kind of gives you a reputation within the company as somebody who can take an important problem and run with it, irrespective of whether it falls into your JD job description or not. And secondly, it gives you like a fuller picture of how your company actually works. What are the different areas? And I think that makes you a smarter product marketer in general. So yeah, if opportunities come along, like for example, for me, it was, hey, we want to rethink how we want to do developer relations in the company. And I kind of took on that problem and it gave me a different perspective of, hey, there's a different audience. We think about them slightly differently here. We build content for them slightly differently here. So things like that, if that comes your way, I would say, yeah, be strategic about saying yes, stretch yourself a little bit and see what comes out of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, Ramon. Okay, Amy, I got this one for you. We kind of alluded to it earlier on.
Yeah.
I think, especially in tech, we see people jump around often, and they jump around, and every 1 to 2 years, and when they jump, they get the promotion. At least LinkedIn says so. So maybe that's one way to accelerate career advancement, right? But there are people like you who've been at the company for a long time. You were at Stripe for 8+ years.
Square for eight and a
Square,
half
Square,
years.
not
Yeah.
Stripe. My bad. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
The two big S's here. Um, so that, by the way, congrats. That's quite a feat these days, especially in tech. So you're obviously in a great place career-wise, but still, like in hindsight, would you have done anything differently? How did that help you, or maybe even held you back at some points?
Um, I don't regret, that at all. I think I look back on my time at Square very like it was a very career defining opportunity for me. And and oftentimes people ask me like, how do I transition into a new role? I don't like what I'm doing. How do I transition into this new role? And people ask me about that in product marketing as well. And I think, the easiest way to do that is to do the role within the company that you're at today. If you're trying to break into a new role, but you want to leave your job and you're interviewing with a new company that doesn't know you at all and what you're capable of, it's really hard to make that change. And so that's kind of what I really optimized for my tenure at Square was, once I got enough out of the role and I learned a lot. I really wanted to stretch myself and learn kind of a new area. And you can do that by jumping into a new company, which is much harder to do, or rely on the network and the brand that I've already built internally and navigate into a new role, whether it's taking on new special projects or networking with the right people, expressing my interests so that they can kind of involve me in certain things. And so that's kind of the approach I took with my career, and I think it really paid off. I took on 3 different leadership roles in my time there. And each time I was optimizing for something different. When I transitioned into strategy and ops, I really wanted to get that kind of the breadth and understanding, what I can understand, how do you accelerate growth within a specific product? So my advice is that it's not really about optimizing, how much time you're at a company or in a specific role, but to really think about, are you still learning in your role? Are you still stretching yourself and, increasing your impact? And if the answer is no, then you should, whether it's looking elsewhere or looking internally, that's how you really kind of grow your career.
Nice. Yeah, yeah. You're spot on, right? So there's the ownership piece, and don't say no to things, right? Take things on. But
But
also,
strategically say
yes,
take the right things on.
take the right things on.
Be
Absolutely.
I think
Don't
you
say
also
intentional
have
about them.
to you also have to like be really pragmatic about the size of the company you're in and what those opportunities are. So, like I was with Intuit for a number of years, and you can build a very long career and continue to grow and move around to very different roles. But when you're in smaller companies and tech startups, like you're going to run out of runway at some point. So you have to be able to balance like what's jumping around too much with like not overstaying. And there's something in the middle there.
hmm hmm That's good insight for sure. Um, okay. We're right around the time where we should probably transition to live Q&A. We've got a bunch of questions. So, how about this? I'm not going to call anybody in particular. I'm going to say the question, and if you want to jump on it and answer,
Do
just
we get buzzers, Jack? Do we need buzzers for this?
is there a digital buzzer here? I don't see one. Maybe we gotta ship the a button to you next time or something. But yeah, we just chime in, and then if someone else has something to attack on or different perspective, we'll just keep rolling. Sound good?
Yep.
Okay. All right. This one's very timely, very much like what's your 2026 outlook, but PMM edition. So, given the evolving nature of the PMM role. Where do you think it's heading this year? It's kind of broad, but maybe treat that question as like within the context of your space and the way that you've orged your teams. Who wants to take this on?
I wonder if anybody wants to talk about AI on this segment at all.
There you go.
Because I think that that's, at least for my team, we're going through a pretty big trend, and I think we should talk about this here because AI is something that everybody has to step up to and step into. But we're right now on a big transition of getting everybody tooled up. We're using Gemini gems, and we're learning how to implement that in marketing. I think our engineering teams are out ahead of us, but like there's a number of folks within marketing where we're really trying to adopt new tools. It's been transformative for us in terms of building connections from Claude into Chorus or into Salesforce, and some of those insights. We talked about customer insights. Those insights that can be really hard to get because you have to listen to call after call after call in Chorus. We can now get those insights in like minutes and not hours. And so that has been transformative, but we're like literally at the beginning. I think we're probably 20% adoption within PMM, and we want to continue to push that over the course of the year.
Yeah, that's elephant in the room, right?
Basically.
Don't get replaced or displaced. Are there any specific tools that you mentioned? I think Claude. Are there other tools that are uh, kind of AI? I hate this word. I'm going to say it, AI native for PMMs. Anything that you've come across that someone on your team or you yourself has used and been like, this is amazing and it saves me so much time?
Ramon just came off mute, so
No,
maybe.
no, yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Kelly.
No,
I can.
please go for it. I've already been.
I think I completely agree with Kelly. One area in which I feel like I don't think we have done the full gamut of like, hey, automate every single thing, all content is being produced by AI. Nor do I want to go there. Like I feel like the taste and the storytelling element of product marketing should stay alive. We should use AI to help it, to do sanity checking and so on. But one area where I feel like the productivity gains have been massive is expediting the learning about a new concept, a new domain, a new competitor, or a new customer, all of those things, or a new product area for that matter. I find the deep research functionality within any of the AI models, whether it is Gemini, ChatGPT, whatever, the deep research functionality. If you're trying to learn a new concept, if you produce a like 15 to 20 page report on that thing, I think that it's a easy 15 to 20 minute read. But that is time so well spent. In the past, you would probably have to do days and days of research to build any kind of a point of view on that topic or that area. And now you can do that in minutes,
Mm-hmm.
an hour at most. So that I feel like has been a big productivity booster. The other thing I would say is the ability to actually build things yourself, whether it is a small automation, small proof of concept, or even a demo. Tools like Cursor and Cloud Code, they are so handy. If you are trying to build like a technical demo for an audience, I think those things come in very handy now.
Mm-hmm.
So AI definitely is a big part of it for sure. I'm sure there are other trends, but everyone
Yeah.
wants to talk about AI.
I do think AI is the place that I've been really emphasizing for my team as well, of like how do you automate some of these workflows that, used to take a long time. Things like competitive intelligence and being able to get these at your fingertips and building agents that's actually, summarizing win-loss reasons for you and getting those tangible insights so that you're refreshing them on a much more frequent basis and being able to use that as leverage for the product team. So I know AI is the trend, but that's definitely the area that my team's focusing on this year.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. AI.
We had to. We couldn't. I think we would be remiss if we didn't bring that topic up here.
I know it's like you're like beat over the head with it so much every which direction, but yet you have to address it.
Yeah.
All right, that's awesome. Oh, this question is interesting because it kind of links back to something, Amy, you mentioned in the very, very beginning. What is the ideal percentage of product marketing that's focused on positioning and messaging? Because how do you actually track success beyond the vanity metrics that sometimes are set?
I think it's really hard to answer that question because it depends on the phase that your product is in. I think if you're bringing a brand new product to market, you should be spending so much of your time understanding the customers, testing crafting, different value props and developing that positioning versus, a mature product, you're probably optimizing and, spending less time and really kind of thinking about additional growth levers. So it really just depends on that stage of product you're at.
Hmm. Yeah, this question, I mean, it was a long question and it's multiple parts. And I don't, personally, I've never seen a company or PMM team be successful when you split the team in the sense that like, oh, you have this PMM and that PMM focus on messaging and others focus on launch. It's almost like you
Yeah.
need that corporate story and narrative, and that always starts at the top in
Yeah.
terms of the CEO really owning that story and the CMO or the head of product marketing coming, like helping to come up with it. But the message has to like hierarchically start at the corporate level, then it branches down into platform, solution, product, however you want to come up with your architecture. And success is really, a little bit micro then, right? Depending on launches, or you're looking at the overall business and that's attached to platform, add-ons, all these other things. So whoever submitted this question, I think it's interesting, but I would bifurcate the difference between messaging versus success. Messaging is like the umbrella that everything else should feed up into. Anything to add to that, Kelly or Rahman?
I think I mean, depending on what the go-to-market motion of your company is, you kind of um, define success by different metrics. It is not always downloads and impressions or page views. Like maybe in some cases it is your messaging resonating through this specific channel? Like it could be a partner channel or a sales channel. How many of your sellers are actually using the content that you're building, and what kind of qualitative feedback are you getting from them? I think in sales-led motions, sometimes that is even more important than, what does the tagline on your website say? So yeah, just I feel like I think good product marketers learn to be comfortable with the fact that success is defined slightly differently, in different contexts.
Mm-hmm. Let's find another question. I'm just gonna go off of ones that get the more thumbs ups. Um, does anybody know what FMCG means? Is this consumer goods?
I'm guessing fast moving consumer goods.
Sounds appropriate since you're on the panel, Kelly. You want to take this one? Okay,
But I
I'll
don't
read it
have
out
any
loud.
experience in FMCG. I'm slow moving consumer goods.
Still consumer goods.
I can take a crack at it, Jack.
Okay, I'll say it out loud so everyone can hear it. So the question is, do you still see value of FMCG marketing experience, fast-moving consumer goods, hope I got that right, for PMM vacancies? This seems the case more than a decade ago. Is this expired now at this point? And do leaders prefer more PMMs with tech experience?
I don't think so at all. Like I think based on the conversation we had earlier, when all of the disciplines that we think are potentially feeders for PMM,
Yeah.
I think it's more about the mindsets. Like in consumer goods, do you have the mindsets of a PMM? Do you understand the customer? Do you understand the product? And so I think it's less about industry and more about the mindset of the person coming from that industry. There's very few industries I would like rule out completely.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it goes, yeah, go for it.
So I do not come from an FMCG background, but I think there's a common saying in Silicon Valley about the product marketing role is that a PM's job is to make sure that the product lands on the shelf, and a PMM's job is to make sure that it flies off the shelf. So that's a very FMCG way of thinking about it. So I think, a lot of things that are relevant for FMCG, value prop, articulation, having a great offer against your product, I think are very, very relevant, even in like tech product marketing, especially um, if you have a PLG motion. Like PLG motion is very much like consumer products motion in many ways, right? So are you telling the right story? Are you incentivizing the user or the visitor to take an action right away? All of those things. I believe FMCG marketing understands those things very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The function of PMM is like within Silicon Valley, I think is still fairly new. And so you sometimes have to go outside of tech marketing to find people to fill your candidate funnels. Like I think it's hard to find true veterans that have only done PMM. You have to sort of think outside the box when you're hiring.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even personally, I've hired PMMs from internal talent, from RevOps, from customer marketing, from content. So I truly can stand behind that. Um, it's all about framing the problem and being able to then properly positioning the solution for it, right? So if you come from more of a technical space or background, you can lean towards the aspects of PMM that are more like how do you influence product roadmap and prioritize? How do you drive successful launches? Pricing and packaging, Ramon mentioned a couple of times. What about dev experience and advocacy, right? And whereas if you're more on the content, demand gen, well, you know the source of like understanding the customer, storytelling. So there's just so many different angles to go about it that it's never about, hopefully, it's not just about the logo on your resume. It's how you can tell that story about your career and profile. Um, if you happen to start in PMM, this next question, do you believe there is value in deliberately changing roles to gather more diverse experience and then bringing that back to PMM in the future?
I always think that's smart. As much for your own exploration of other things that are out there, like you have to sort of answer the question of where you want to be. Do you want to be a CMO or do you want to be a VP of PMM? And so if the answer to that is CMO, then go and get as many experiences as possible. If the answer to that is VP PMM, then there's sort of your answer. But in general, I think being well-rounded is never a bad thing.
Yeah, I agree.
I would also say, like, even if the goal is to be a VP of PMM, there's that's always a place that you can come back to, but you should dive deeper into different areas so that you can gain different perspectives and understanding to be a better partner. Um, so I agree. I think it never hurts to get more perspectives.
Yeah. And just like how we all have said and experienced PMMs who didn't start in PMM, it doesn't mean you can't veer off and then eventually
Mhm.
come back to it, right? Because it is the gathering of skill sets that propels someone's ability to get other jobs, and it opens doors when you take on problems and take ownership at the end of the day.
And you might be surprised. Maybe you were a demand gen person dressed in PMM clothes and you try a DG role and realize that's what you want to do, or the opposite is true, which is also a positive. Like, no, I really love PMM and that's all I want to do.
Yeah. I feel like you're talking to me, Kelly. My last role was at head of marketing, and it actually made me realize like I like doing this, but I love product
Yeah,
marketing, the product marketing scope. So
yeah.
yeah. Okay. Anything else to add to that one? Okay. There's the next question's a bit more specific. I'm unable to tie it to career directly. It's more about the PMM job, if you will. I'm gonna go for it anyway. How do you balance your insights and research when customers and consumers are different? What behaviors impact decision making more?
Oh, I'm not sure. Can you say a little bit more about when customers versus consumers are different?
Yeah. Um, so the example here, I skipped some of the context. How do you balance insights and research when your customers, if they're advertisers, and consumers, end users, are different? Like what do you draw from for decision making as a PM?
Got it. I think it's more like if your product or your company is actually serving multiple personas.
Yeah,
And so, whether, there's like B2B to B, there's B2B to C, and you really need to kind of shape your messaging accordingly. between my stint at Motive and Square, I was at a small startup that was B2B2B. And we had it, our primary customer were platforms that wanted to integrate with us. And we had a very specific, go-to-market motion on how to bring on more platforms, but we actually don't get revenue until we get adoption from the customers that they serve. And so how I actually organized my team was I had, PMM focusing on partner facing messaging on what is the value of our platform. And then to actually enable the customers who are them using the service needs a different set of messaging. So it's not really about, I think the decision making is, how are you going to prioritize for the main buyer? But then to get adoption, you have to, tailor that messaging as well. So you do need to prioritize who you're optimizing for when there are multiple personas, but it doesn't mean that like you can't develop tailored messaging after that.
Mm-hmm. What I'm hearing is, correct me if I'm wrong, so what I'm hearing is always start with the buyer and then round out the other stakeholders that might not be part of that core buying committee.
I think it's an influence, but we had to make a deliberate decision on like who are we optimizing for, and ultimately it needs to be for the buyer.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
I think I'm trying to understand the question a little bit better, whether they are really talking about two separate personas, not as in one is a user and one is a buyer, but one is a user of the product and the other one is the person who you monetize. You know what I mean? Like for Google, for example, somebody would be putting an ad, but the person who's actually using Google to do a search query is not the person you want to monetize. So how would you think about them? And I think my response there always is, if there was no user, no advertiser would come to you. So you have to continue to create a great experience for your user so that you have millions of users, which is why advertisers feel compelled to come and talk to you. At which point your value prop for your advertisers, one of your value props for your advertisers would be, we have all these millions of users. But yeah, I don't know whether I'm interpreting the question correctly or not, but when I saw advertisers and users, my mind immediately went to, oh,
yeah.
this is either like a content platform or Google search or one of those products.
If I was sharper, I probably would have skipped it because I should have connected the dots. I'm like, this is not so much about a career. Maybe somebody is applying to jobs at your companies and they're trying to anticipate an interview question. I don't know. Just my conspiracy theory. Okay. We've got time for one more question, and I'm gonna hand it back to Heather to close us out. This one is I got two. I'm going to choose the more career-oriented one. So for Tina, who asked the other question, we'll get back to you offline. This next question: any advice for someone making a pivot into product marketing with no prior marketing experience, other than the marketing degree? This person has extensive experience in e-commerce and merchandising at a retailer environment. Any advice regarding courses, certifications, types of roles to target that could allow this individual to pivot into PMM down the road?
I actually got this question in my AMA a couple of weeks ago, and the one most tangible piece of advice I could give is do it in your existing company where you're a known commodity. Don't try and make that kind of a pivot, and it's just going to be so much harder to jump ship and make that pivot. So make sure you've got a great solid reputation in the company that you're in, and then make that move within your company. It's just going to be it's just going to be much easier to effectuate.
Yeah. Yeah.
The only thing,
Yeah, and
sorry, go ahead.
oh, thanks. I was, to add on to that, sometimes it's like within that own company, expressing that interest into pivoting, asking if you can take on, a side project to help on the side so you can start to get some of that experience. I will always take help from anyone who wants to, help with some small projects here and there. And so I think that's the best way to dip your toes into it.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say to Kelly's point, whenever you're trying to affect a change in your career, like how many variables can you change at once? Do you want to change your discipline? Do you want to change your company? Do you want to change the domain that you're operating in? It's very hard to manage more than one variable change at a time. So if you can do that within the same company, good. If not, maybe the next thing to explore is, can you stay within that same domain? You know, because you have built up an understanding and appreciation and intuition about that domain. You are in the e-commerce merchandising space. Are there product marketing roles close to that area? You understand this problem space already. You can probably write a blog or two about it. You know, so something like that maybe is the next step. If it is not possible within the same company, at least within the same domain or an area that you can call yourself an expert at, I think you'll have a much better shot at, finding product marketing roles.
Yeah, I like that. Reducing the number of variables and hurdles you perhaps have to cross because, yeah, we've all reviewed probably thousands of resumes, and I think the average time someone glances at a resume is like 3 or 4 seconds, and so yeah, you want to reduce any. It's almost like instant objection handling. You just want to
Yeah,
like
yeah.
minimize ways people can write you off, right? And referrals, like it's tried and true. Like whether you're trying to sell something or whether it's for a new job or new business, right? Like tap into your network, people who know you and have worked with you in the past, whether it's in a professional capacity or even at school. Like you want to go back to that well. It rarely dries up. Hopefully that well is wide or deep enough. Thank you guys so much. This was really, really fun for me. And I actually learned a lot from hearing from your experiences as well. So I hope we get to do this again down the road. This is also a very fun and just easy topic to talk about, you know? So
Yep.
yeah, I had a great time. Thank you
Thanks for
guys.
having us. Thank you.
Thank you,
All right,
everyone.
Thank you
I'm
so
gonna
much.
pass it back to Heather.
Thank you guys. Thank you to our panel and our moderator. We work hard to curate the best product marketing mentors for you to learn from, including the people on this panel. When you're ready for your next job, we always recommend looking for jobs on their teams. If you had a question that wasn't answered, you can search thousands of answers on sharebird.com or ask it on an upcoming Sharebird AMA. As a reminder, our next event is February 19th on building better messaging, and you can register for that event at the link in the chat. Lastly, if you have any questions or feedback for us, please email us at events@sharebird.com. Thank you, everyone.